Thank you, Jim. So you guys know the story, right? We've heard it here in some way or another every year during the holiday season. Normally in the traditional church calendar, right, in the liturgical church calendar, this is taught after Christmas. This is the story of the Epiphany. But hey, we're in a new space. We're going to do it however we want to do it, right? So I want to talk about this now, right? I love this story. I love this story for many, many reasons. And it teaches us so many different things, right? So you have these wise men, right? As one young person in a youth group says, these wise guys, right? Tradition says that there were three, but there's really no record there that there were three of them, right? We just because of three gifts, we typically think there was three. The Catholic Church even named them, right? We give them names, right? Melchior, Balthasar, and some other dude, right?
Yeah.
Right? Which is fine. That's all good, right? It's all good. If it's for God, it's all good, right? But I'm fascinated by these characters for a lot of reasons, right? A lot of reasons. So we don't know a whole lot about them. There's very little written about them in the canon, in the 66 books that we have that we call the Bible. Very little is written about them. And this is one of the few passages. This Matthew passage is one of the few passages that talks about these guys. But what we do know is that they weren't from Israel. They weren't from where Jesus was and where the biblical Holy Land, right? They weren't from there. They said they were coming from somewhere else. They were coming from the east. And they were led to the Christ by a star. Right? Think about that, right? Not the Bible, right? Not this prophet, not this priest, not the Sanhedrin, not the whatever. A star led them to the Christ. An element from the universe, from nature, from creation, led them to the Christ. You know, is there anybody here of Irish or Scottish, Celtic heritage? Right. So I don't know if you guys know this about your ancestors, but if you ever have to study Celtic Christianity, it's a really fascinating and beautiful tradition. I recommend a book. It's called The Christ of the Celts. Read John Philip Newell, great mystic. Anyways, it's a great book. But in that book, Christ of the Celts, John Philip Newell says that the Celtic Christians, that they believe that God wrote two books. Right? This is God wrote two books. This is how he talked. God wrote he wrote the small book, right? The Bible, right? That we carry around, and that's the small book. It has a lot of tradition, teaching, inspiration, the life of Christ, so many other awesome things, that all of the beautiful tradition that we get from the Hebrew culture that is before the time of Christ. All of that's in the small book. So we say, so God wrote the small book, but then God also wrote the big book, right? And the big book is creation, right? It's everything around us. So we're always in the big book, right? So these wise guys, they weren't led to Christ by the small book. They were led to Jesus by the big book, right? The big book, something from the big book was speaking to them, and they had ears to hear, or maybe sight to see, right? They had the sight to see, hey, this thing is leading us to the Christ. So I love that. I love that right away because I don't ever really title my talks. I think that can you kind of corny? I want to title this talk and then give a title. But if you were to take a title for today and also for Christmas Eve, I would. The theme would be finding the sacred in the common, right? Finding the sacred where you least expect it, right? And finding the sacred where it isn't obvious. So they were being led. These guys were being led to because they deciphered somehow from the star that a new king had been born in Israel. They were students of the stars. So go figure. For all those people who think that's astrology or whatever, okay, knock yourself out. It's in the Bible, right? So, it's in the Bible, right? So they were studying this, and somehow the star told them there is a new king in Israel. So they go to where they logically think the new king is supposed to be, in the capital, in Jerusalem, and then they go to the palace, right? The royal palace. If a new king is going to be born, it stands to reason he's going to be in the capital city, in the royal palace. But he wasn't there, right? And then what's crazy about the story is that upon the arrival of these wise men to the palace, they encountered the king and his court, and they said, "Where is the newborn king? We've seen his star in the east, and we've come to worship him." And it says there, you all read the passage with Jill. It says that the king and all of Jerusalem were troubled. They were bugged. They were bothered. What do you mean there's a new king? I'm the king. He's our king. What are you talking about, a new king? They were completely unaware. The people who should have been most aware were completely unaware of the arrival of the Christ. And I think, we go so many places with this. This has so many implications, right? Isn't it sad? And maybe this is an indictment against we who call ourselves a church. How often maybe are we completely oblivious to where God is showing up? Because he's not showing up the way that we, the church, think God should arrive, right? We think, well, God's going to be arriving in beautiful churches and he's going to be in worship concerts or Christian conferences. That's where God's going to show up. And I'm not saying he doesn't, I'm sure he does. But sometimes God shows up in other places. And because Christians are so Christianized and so churched and so gospelized, we all should be gospelized, right? But you know what I mean? We're so into church that we miss out all of the other cool places where God is showing up all the time. So gathered, may we not be like Herod and Jerusalem, who were completely oblivious to the birth of the Christ. And God had to bring people from somewhere else who were not the chosen people, who were not followers of Jehovah, who didn't serve Jehovah God. They served, who knows? Maybe they worship the stars, I don't know, right? But they were led to the Christ. Somebody else who wasn't part of the chosen people, right? Came to show the chosen people the Christ has been born. So in this Christmas season, may we not miss all of the different ways in which God may show up. And in this coming year, be ready for God to show up in the most inopportune of places. Right? They show up in a manger, right? In a manger, in a stable. That's where they came to find the Christ. The least likely of places, the most maybe inopportune of places for a king to be born, but that's where Jesus was. So, in our celebrations that we're going to be having, let's have them. It's Christmas is good, the food is good, the traditions are good, the ugly sweaters not so good, but in our traditions, may we have them, and may we be conscious of, well, maybe God is somewhere else. God may be here, but God also may be somewhere else, right? And so let's open up our eyes to all of the different places where God can show up. Because God will show up in places that we don't expect. He will, not only will he usually shows up in ways that we don't expect, right? In the Bible, over and over again, God is many different things, and God shows up in many different ways. In a burning bush, in a cloud, in a pillar of fire, in a donkey, right? Like God spoke through a donkey, right? You've heard my bad joke about that, right? I heard a pastor one time say, he said, well, does God still speak through donkeys? He goes, yeah, turn on C-SPAN. God shows up in all kinds of different ways, right? Through me, through you, through children, through a homeless man that we run into in the street. God shows up in all kinds of different ways. May we not be like Herod, right? Also, as I mentioned, Herod and Israel, it was like a threat that Jesus was born. It was a threat to them. And these were supposed to be the people of God. How many times has it happened in the history of the church, the 2,000-year history of the church, that when a new thing starts, the established church views the new thing as a threat? Right? Man, we Christians, we're good at killing our own. We've done it over and over and over again in the 2,000-year history of the church. It's the history of one persecution after another by By Christians, right? By Christians. The reason that, I guess, that a lot of people migrated to the New World is for religious freedom, right? They wanted to be able to practice in a different way. But then soon enough, those people started persecuting other people, right? Who had come here, right? If you read the story of the original pilgrims, they got mad because some other people moved and wanted to practice freely. No. We moved here to do this, and you have to do this with us. So it's so funny how we all do that, right? We all do that. And it's not an indictment on them, it's an indictment on us. That's not a them problem, this is an us problem, right? So before we pass judgment on any of us, this is an us problem. We like people to do things that we like, right? So, so this is not, don't view this as like we're somehow smarter than the people in the past. No. We're also guilty of that, right? Well, this is how we always do it. I remember one of the first times that I administered Holy Communion. Oh boy, I got a talking to because I did it my own way, right? Oh, that's not how you do it. You can't do it that way. You got to say the magic words, May they, may this be for us, if you don't say the magic words, it's not done. So, but God shows up in all kinds of ways. In all kinds of ways. So let's be open. Let's be open. Let's be wise, right? Wise, I'm not going to say wise men, wise people, right? Wise humankind are still seeking the Christ, right? The wise are still seeking the Christ. And so, let's seek Him. Let's look for those signs in nature. Let's look for those signs all around us of how the Christ may be showing up all around us. You know that as we are here in this place, as you're sitting and I'm standing in this place, you know that there are waves going through here. There's internet waves going through here. There are cell phone signals going through here. Televisions. There's a TV station right there, right? So there's like TV station waves going through here. Radio waves. Because we're so close to Kirkland, who knows where other kind of waves may be going through here, right? But you need the right instrument to pull down the signal, right? You need a cell phone, you need a radio, you need a television, you need a modem, something to pull down a signal, and then that instrument decodes the signal so it becomes useful information. Otherwise, it's just data that's floating. And for many people, God is speaking. It's not that God has stopped speaking or that God has stopped communicating. God is communicating. But maybe we need to tune our instruments, right? We need to take our instrument in for some maintenance. Because God is speaking, but not everyone is listening, not everybody is watching, not everybody is sensing. So let's be open. Let Christmas be about how we are open to what God is doing right now, what the Spirit is doing right now. Pray with me today.